Hi, everyone. It is John C. Morley, serial entrepreneur, and welcome to Inspirations for Your Life, IFYL. I have a great guest that I think you guys are really going to enjoy today. But before I tell you about her, I want to just let you know that I thank you for being here with me, whether you're here with us 1 o'clock live or 1 a.m. or 6 a.m. or 6 p.m. or any other time. Thank you so much for being here. As you know, we do replay and we also are in the audio format 24 hours later. So thanks for being here. Our master topic for the week, ladies and gentlemen, is perseverance. The keys to perseverance. We're on series 3, which means we're in our 3rd year. We're on show 27, so really happy about that. And today's granular topic is unlocking resilience secrets. That's a very, very interesting thing when we think about the word resilience. But if I was to ask you right now, what is resilience? Well, you know who I'm going to go to ask. I'm going to go ahead and ask Merriam-Webster, who I ask all these great questions to. That is Merriam-Webster, and we get all of our great definitions from her because she seems to be able to break it down really easy for us. And according to Merriam-Webster, and I quote, resiliency is a noun, the ability of something to return to its original size and shape after being compressed. Like, maybe you squeeze a ball and then after it's under that stress and then it releases, it comes back. Most of these rollers have to be replaced after a few years. When the rubber loses its resiliency, and then you put new ones on and then it can bounce right back, right? So an ability to recover for or adjust to or from adversity is resilience. So resilience is a really, really cool word. And I think it sums up a lot about my guest. My guest today is Jenn Drummond. She actually sent this book to me a while ago. And as you guys know, I read every single author's book. I think I have about 45 books right now. So that's why there's such a long time for me to actually get them on the show. So again, it was a great book. And I read it over the Christmas holidays for me. It was amazing. But what I want to tell you about her, she's pretty amazing, this lady. She's an entrepreneur. She's a mother of 7, and she's a world record holder as the first woman in history to climb the 7-second summits. But that's so great. But there's something else really remarkable about Jenn. And it doesn't come right here on the cover, but I'm going to tell you about it. She actually was in a very fatal car accident in 2018. She had to have the jaws of life get her out, and she didn't know whether she was going to live or die. And that moment that she came back, it really woke her up in a sense of saying, hey, you know what? Am I living life or am I thriving? And it really got her to, let's say, change her purpose and embrace the concept of living in the moment. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome to the Inspirations for Your Life show, Mrs. Jenn Drummond.
Hello.
How are you? It is great to have you back on. It was nice to talk with you when we were doing the pre-chat, and it's so great to have you here live today. Your book is amazing. And the story, and I never know what I'm going to get when I get a book from someone. It's just such a privilege and pleasure to read and to learn from another great human being like you. But you had a lot of challenges, as I was explaining to you. And I guess I want to ask you a question, which I gave the answer to. What does resilience mean to you?
Yeah. Well, I titled the book Break because to me that we're never going to break. It's that when the break happens, we have the proof of wrong. And so we know what to do to adjust or change or to come back so that we break in that area and can continue our climb.
That's amazing. So when we think about resilience, it's a lot like that ball, right? We squeeze that ball and then we bounce back. I think sometimes when we're in that state where we feel we can't come back, it's like that perception we have that we can't, but we really can. It's just that perception we have. And if we're right, that goes this way. If we're wrong, it goes that way too. I think Henry Ford said, if we believe we can, we can. If we believe we can't, we can't. So when you said the word breakproof, what was it that first made you want to give the title breakproof? I love that concept.
Yeah. I look back on my life at different times and different things that were really hard that were trying to break me. And then the moment I might have felt like they were, I overcame them and they actually became parts of my story that are my success. And so all of a sudden I realized, well, things that happen that try to break us are just part of our success story. And if we can get that and we use our past to show what we have, then we can continue to become break proof in our pursuit that we continue to take on.
That's amazing. And I have to tell you, your book is very interesting because you do something very interesting in the book, which I'm actually going to jump to this point a little out of order. And it's you start with the end. Tell us about that.
Yeah. You know, it's really hard when you're writing a book to know what order to put them out. But I just felt like mountain gave me a specific lesson and that I really remember that mountain for. So when I was building the book, I realized that even though I got lessons at different times, I felt when I was writing, there was a better way to use the stories and let you start with certain that gave you this foundation to build onto the next one.
And I think sometimes we don't always know where we're starting. You know, even when I'm writing a paper or if I'm writing a press release, I sometimes don't know like where to start. So I'll start the middle. I'm like, wait a minute, that's not a good package. I've got to put a better package on. But first, I got to figure out what's in the box, right? You got to wrap it, but you got to know, you got to have what you're going to wrap first. But so it's okay to start from the middle or maybe even from the end back so that we know what it is we're working with. So you said something very interesting in the book. We said a lot of interesting things. What I'm going to try to do is summarize, but basically there was a person that was with you. There were a lot of people with you. And this person had gotten something happened to his foot. And there was a condition where that you had to make a decision whether you were going to turn back or whether you were going to keep climbing. Now, if you kept climbing, you set up what you explained to me, these different campsites. I never knew you did this. You set these different campsites up. There might be 4, 5, 6, depending how tall the mountain was. And so the people would come together. And you also did something very interesting. You had these locals with you that were doing something very simple for you and the staff. You were paying them some money just so they had a job to help maybe cover your boots or carry them or something like that, which I thought was a really good thing. So everybody got to be part of this journey, which I thought was amazing. But what I thought was really something, a lot of people, you know, when they start to go up to the top, they are like, I'm going to the top. Well, I can't make it. Okay, well, see you. And you came up with this very good slogan, Jenn, which I absolutely love.
Yeah.
Why people before peaks.
Yeah. So here's the thing. After we've climbed a few mountains in our life, metaphorically, you realize that it's pretty lonely at the top. Only at the top because you didn't bring them. And I had the confidence that I knew I would complete this mission. And my energy didn't need to be focused so much on completing it. I needed to be focused on how do I enjoy it? How do I bring people along? How do I make this mission more just mine? And so in the climbs, I've had to turn around on a few mountains. Anytime that somebody from my team was hurt, we lost a person to an avalanche, those were cues that I could continue to climb because I'm putting people first. And in life, I think it's always important to put people first because the mountains will always be there. And so you live that principle of people over peaks, you'll get to the mountain. It might not just be on the time frame that you set out for, but that's okay because truly the journey unfolds into something more. Every single time I've put people first, and that's what I did because the legacy is the people we impact, not necessarily the things that we do.
I love that, Jenn. And I think the fact that, in life, we're talking about your mountain here that you were climbing, but we're really talking about proverbial mountains, as you mentioned. Yeah. And that's where the book comes from. You say, well, I'm not climbing a mountain. Well, yes, you are. You're climbing mountains every day. So that's a real important thing. If you look and say, well, I'm not going to climb a mountain, but you are. Her analogy to mountains that she's climbing are similar to the mountains that you and I climb every single day in our lives, whether it be in relationships, whether it be in business, whether it be in volunteering, or whether it be in fitness, financial life. There's lots of mountains that we climb. And so I think that's an amazing analogy to, how that works and how we have to put people first, because if we don't put people first, people aren't going to like us, number one. And second of all, we're going to lose friends. But the third thing is that we're going to be developing this very strong ego that isn't good for us. And nobody really wants an ego, but a lot of people that get to the top have egos. And I think that's really important that we have to stay humble. Talk to us a little about that, Jenn.
Yeah. Here's the crazy thing about climbing mountains, physical, metaphorical, is that when I looked on Mount Everest, I was on the top of Mount Everest for 10 minutes. I trained 1,238 hours and was on the side of that mountain for a few weeks before I got to the top. And when I started hiking back down, I realized, man, if this isn't an energy for it's the destination, it's the journey. I don't know what it. And so we have these goals that we set for ourselves, these mountains that we want to climb. Really, the path that those put us on, that our lives are lived. And that's where we get to most impact. That's where we get to discover who we are. That's where we get to evolve as people and more possible.
So we have to always remember the people around us, and we always have to remember where we've come from. I think that's important, regardless of what level we're at. Another interesting thing that was interesting I learned about you was that in that accident, people say, "Well, gee, how did it suddenly go to where we are, which is climbing mountains?" And it got to there because you know you had your son. I don't know what was his name, by the way.
Josh, my son
Josh.
Josh.
So Josh, basically, you had told him that you wanted to you were going to start climbing a mountain, and he said, "Mom, how about Mount Everest?" And you probably were like ready to fall over, probably over at breakfast. And I'm like, okay, and you embraced that. I bet he probably was maybe shell shocked when you said, "All right." I mean, he probably didn't expect that from you, right?
Yeah, here's the thing. I was training for one mountain and I challenged him, like, we do hard things. So then he came back to me like a kid duck. Well, if you do hard things, why aren't you climbing Everest? And so he finished his homework and we looked at Everest together. And then when he went to bed, I realized I was still kind of looking at Everest. And I thought, why not Everest? If this kid's perception that Everest is the biggest, hardest mountain in the world, I'm gonna climb it, and I show him that whatever our Everest is, we're capable of summiting. And so that's what started that whole pursuit. And the universe gives us messages all the time. It's just our listen to them, and do we have the courage to face, show up, and actually put act behind something that gets us excited.
I love that. Getting excited about your life and what you do and how you can help others. I think that's amazing. When you did this, obviously, and committed to do this for him, so that was obviously there. I mean, you didn't want to break that promise, right? So you wanted to make sure you did it. And when you came back and you did it, what was his reaction after you actually had done that? He knew his mother did that.
Yeah. Here's the funny thing about Everest. I was not scared about the mountain. I was worried about my children, being away from them for so long. So I involved my community. I called school. I visited with the teachers. I told them to be gone for a few days or like a little bit climbing Everest. And while I had help at home, was wondering if to offer my children a little bit more grace. Well, they stepped it up. They said, "Well, why don't you come in and teach about Everest like goals, and we'll do a whole campaign about this, and we'll track you while you're climbing." So I had a tracking device on me, and in the school, the kids would move me up and down a Mount Everest that we made out of cushion paper. And when I was at Everest, I could Zoom call into the classrooms from base camp. We had Wi-Fi at base camp. And so all our pursuit became so much bigger than me. Became the kids' school, became the community. Everybody was following. And so my kids felt so seen by so many people outside of their mom. And when I came back, we had the huge celebration and everybody was excited. I shared story. Friends over, they're like, "Oh, you're the mom that climbed Everest." My son's like, "I'm going to climb it too someday. So it's just fun when we allow people to be our pursuits, because it makes them so much bigger and allows so many more people to follow energy.
When you hear that and you hear that you could make such an impact to people around you, regardless of what age, and inspire them to basically climb their mountain, I think that's just priceless. And it aligns with something, which is why I do my motivational stuff every day. I tell people I only live for two reasons, and people say you're nuts. I live for two reasons every day: to become a better version of myself, and help others become better versions of themselves. And everyone says to me, "John, you're being selfish." I said, "What do you mean?" "Well, why are you taking care of yourself first?" I said, well, there's a reason. Because see, if I don't take care of myself first, I can't take care of you. So I got to make sure I'm stable. So I remember you saying also in the book that, you know, when you're doing things, you have to take care of your team, but you also have to take care of yourself. Because if you can't take care of yourself, then you're going to be no good to help anybody else on your team.
Definitely. And I think we forget when we're death situations. Only I know how I'm doing, right? Only I can tell you that I'm at my max, or I'm about to run out of energy, or I'm too cold, or I'm too whatever. And I've been on enough teams. People haven't done their due diligence for themselves. They became frostbite. They ran out of debt. And when you're in extreme environments, you put the whole team at risk when that happens. So please, like, take care of you. You're taking care of you. You're taking care of others, and you're actually giving others permission to do the same thing.
And that's a great thing. You have respect in yourself, you have respect in others, and I think when we start to look about, you know, how we can help others, we find that we can learn something ourselves. When we try to help them do something, we can have, you know, so much joy. I'll use a quick example. It was Father's Day not too long ago, and you know, I wasn't going to be with my dad because they're in Florida, and I'm actually leaving to see them in a little while. But when, you know, I said, what am I going to send my dad? I sent him a card. What am I going to send him? And he doesn't need anything. He says, don't send him anything. I said, but what am I going to send him? This is the thought that counts. It's not the gift. Yeah. So I went online to one of these fruit places and I ordered him a dad made fruit basket. It was all things. So I called them. I got it on Saturday and he was like in tears. It was just a simple little thing. It wasn't even that expensive. And he had it for 2 weeks and he was in tears that I sent it. And I said, you know, whatever the amount of money, I said, you know, John, that was like the best use of that money. And I think when you can just use whatever it is, even if it's a small amount, and you can put a smile on somebody's face, whether doesn't have to be a stranger, it could be somebody you know. I tell people, you got to make sure that you live the moments while you're alive, but you got to make sure that the people you love and you're with, that you let them live the moments and you give them the best moments possible in life.
Yeah, no, it's nice when we can impact each other, and it's the simplest things, right? When I was in and I ran into some scary points, and I knew I was going to run into scary points. I just didn't know when I was going to run into them. I had friends write me letters before I left, and wrote me letters. So into a hard spot, I would open a letter from a friend. Yeah, this is who I am. This is who I am. This is like, okay, I'm going to thing. It's not that scary. I'm good. It's so fun to receive that and to remember to give that as well.
So people like to get feedback as well as we like to give feedback. I think there's a great feeling, that dopamine in our body. It's a natural high we get when we can praise someone and also they can praise us. And I never realized that many years ago that we can get praise not just from being praised, but we can actually get praised when we compliment others and do it sincerely. I would have never believed that years ago. But that's an amazing thing I've only learned in the last few years. Now, you said something else also very interesting. When we talk about, you know, the mountain, let's talk about something you said, which is the messy middle.
Yeah.
So how do we handle that messy middle? We all have messy middles in our life. So how do we handle those?
Yeah, messy middle fun part. That means you're in the middle of it. If it's not fun, hard, or it's a struggle, or you want to give up, you've arrived. So here's what happens. We get an idea or we start something, we have all this inner excitement, we start moving forward. But when you start climbing the mountain, you're not safe at base camp. You're not as comfortable as you were. And you still don't see the summit, right? So you don't quite understand how much longer do I have, what's going on, blah, 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 blah. So it just feels messy. For me, what I needed was I started to break things down smaller, document progress. And progress gave me momentum to continue going forward. And it'd be silly. It'd be sometimes, okay, I'm gonna count to 100 steps. Oh, I made progress because I counted to 100. Or I'm gonna get to this point on the end, or these things. So when you're in the messy middle, it's important to understand that, hey, this is the funnest part. That's okay. And then to understand, what can you do to give your momentum that allows you to continue the pursuit, because you don't want to turn around.
So when you have a big project, a lot of times it's a huge project. How am I ever going to get it done? Where am I going to start? Break it down into little chunks and then kind of check off. I know sometimes what I do a lot of times, when you have a busy day, even the weekend, you're like, how am I going to get all this stuff done? So I take out just a simple piece of paper and a pen, no technology, and I write out what they are, 6, 7, 8 things. And as I get them done, I don't check them off. I cross them through. I'm like, yes. And I don't type them. And the reason I do that is I get the feeling of writing them out, and I get the feeling of crossing it out. And I'm like, and 99% of the time, there's 12 things on the list. Maybe I get 11 done. And it's amazing how your brain works with what you write down. It's like, I don't know how I would have done that, but it's just on a list. And it's not that you don't remember. It's like this drive that keeps pushing you. Like you explained with the footsteps, right? You just said, well, I can't do the whole thing. Let me just take 10 steps. It's like when I'm training to do the running, I don't know if I can run 60 minutes, but all I need to do is take the next step, the next breath, just the next one. And the one after that will take care of itself, but just worry about the next one. And I think that's what I'm hearing you say a lot about the mountain, is that you didn't necessarily know how you're going to get to the top, but you just knew you had to take the next step. And you mentioned something in one of your earlier chapters. I'm trying to remember the word. You used a certain word where you used ice picking and something else. There was a process where you had to put your foot in the bottom, and you had to put your right in here, and you had to really go through and I guess and climb through. I've done rappelling. Now, did you always know how to do that ice picking, or was that something you had to learn, Jenn?
Yeah, no, I definitely not an ice climber when I started on this pursuit, but learned, skills because I knew to be required. And the thing of that is just getting into in a rhythm. So you would do pick, toe pick, ice axe, ice axe. But just kind of keep repeating that in my head, stay into the same beat, because it would be like boom, 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 boom. And that's the mind of the monotony. Lost the frustration, and you just got into this rhythm, and you just did. Eventually you climb.
So it was toe pick. That's what it was, an ice pick. Was it the left and the right, or did it not matter? Was it left foot and then the right and then the left? Was it done in diagonal like that almost, if I'm trying to remember how you did
You
it?
always try to keep the weight in your feet because that's where you're strong. You always want to get your feet into a stable spot, your hands, and then feet, and then stable spot.
I get it. So your 2 feet get wedged. Then I move as much as I can. Then I try to wedge my 2 feet. And so it's foot, and then it's very similar to, well, not the same thing, but if you go indoor rock climbing, it's nothing near that, but it's a similar concept.
Definitely. Same venue, just different tools.
If you fall, you're not going to fall too far. And there's a safety line. I know you have safety lines too. Have you ever had any, I didn't ask this before, has there been any like near close calls? I know in the book there isn't too much of that. We talked about people getting hurt, but were there any near close calls that you didn't write about that got you a little concerned, or maybe your team concerned?
Yeah, on Mount Logan, which should have been the easiest mountain because it's the second summit for North, was actually my hardest mountain, and caught in a snowstorm for a week. And then one of the 18-hour stretches, it was bad. Like we were getting snow blown, the tent was getting buried. We had to unbury the tent. If tent ripped, that was our safety element. Like we were not going to if we didn't have it. So you had to get the snow off ripping the tent. You had to make sure the tent heavy, so then the tent would rip. Like and it was the wind of the tent and pull the fabric taut. It's the sound I'll never get out of my head. But it was, hey, every 30 seconds it happens. Wind, it would be 14 seconds, 58 seconds, 30 seconds. And so your brain just never got to rest for 14 hours. And I realized this punishment, like this is crazy. I'm scared right now, and there's nothing we can do except wait it out and try to keep ourselves as safe as possible.
And you lost one of your people, not any medically, but you lost somebody. I'm sure what mountain it was. You lost one of your team members because they had to go and do something. And I remember you were saying you wish you would have known, but they had to take care of something already. But it would have been nice to know. Do you remember that there was a mountain?
Yeah. So this was Mount Logan the first time. Mount Logan took 2 attempts for the weather and situations. But one of the things I didn't realize on my initial attempt of Mount Logan is that the guides only dedicated so much time, where the rest of us were like, we're doing this until we get to the top. And so when we had weather delays and different things, I was concerned about is we're here to get to the top. But one of the guides had a hard stop for activity that he wanted to get home for. And I remember being on the mountain and finding that out pretty frustrated because that caused us to turn around.
So you basically have to know your team before you engage with them, right?
Yes. You have to know your team and everybody's motives and what their commitment level is. And at the same commitment level, it's probably not the right person to team.
Because just because somebody wants to do something because it's kind of fun is different than somebody that like wants to start a business because, hey, my friend said to start it. They've never started one in their life. Like, oh, this is gonna be fun. Let's do this. It's like the couple that says, gee, from this old house, let's go and put in the sprinklers. We'll do it after dinner. We'll start digging and then we'll probably have them all laid out by dinner. And then by tomorrow, we probably can finish the backyard. Like, that's not even feasible. But yet they say they're doing that. And I think it's understanding realistic expectations. I think that's another clear thing I got from you is that people's realistic expectations of what you want, what the team wants. And I guess there's got to be a lot of check-in with the team to see, like, how are you feeling mentally, physically, and things like that.
Oh, definitely. It's a big advantage of having somebody that's climbed this mountain that you're particularly doing, right? Why are mentors so in? Mentors know what's coming up. They've been there before. They know what to look out for. They know if you're on this part of the mountain, you should put another. When we turn the corner, the wind's going to be at us, and we're going to get a lot colder. That allows you to stay warm and not go freezing and try to heat your body up again, which takes more calories and energy. So whatever mountain you're climbing, if you can partner with someone that's been there, has done something similar, you're going to be 8 years ahead, and it's going to cost you way less money.
What was the food like? I don't even talk too much about, but what was the meals like? I know it was probably not easy, but did you cook or how did that work in the different, I guess, the little campsites? What were you able to make?
Yeah. So for the most, you're melting water to rehydrate dehydrated food. So a lot of food that we're eating is freeze dries something or else that has the right protein, again, different kinds of counts to make it happen.
So there's a lot to climbing a mountain. It's not just about being prepared. It's not just about having a good team, about having good mental and physical attitude. You got to know how to survive out there. And I guess that's why the mentor's there, because if you've never walked that way, or, like you mentioned on one of the mountains, if you just went a little bit to the right and you weren't careful, you could potentially cause a big avalanche that could not only hurt you, but could hurt everyone else on your team.
Oh, yeah. So here on Mount Everest, we were in a horrible snowstorm one day, and one of the Sherpa unclicked from our rope to take a few steps to the side to go to the restroom. And when he did that, he fell into a crevasse, and they could not rescue him. And what people don't understand, you have these like really fine lines of areas that you go, and if you go past those, you don't know what kind of risk you're in. And you don't want to put yourself in or put others in. So you have to be very methodical and just follow, like, here's what we're doing, here's what's tested, here's what's safe, and let everything else be.
There was a mountain you climbed. I think it was Duck Is that Duck Out? Is that right? Duck Out?
How?
Duck. Is that the one that was in Russia? Is that the right word? Yes. And so that's the one I just tell us about. You had a lot of challenges. It wasn't just physical challenges. I know, like, some of them almost got hit by lightning, as you mentioned, because it was very high in the mountain. But also tell us about some of the physical challenges with the airport and some of the issues you had to go through just being able to get there.
Oh yeah. I mean, it was crazy climbing right when COVID had kind of ended places. So tourism was new, everything was up and running, and to get to Rush, flying through Amsterdam. When I went to board the plane in Amsterdam to get to Moscow, they're like, oh, this is a authorization flight only allowed on this plane. You're going to have to reroute through Istanbul or Paris, or. I'm like, oh, well, how did I get booked on this flight? That's crazy. So anyway, I got rerouted through Paris. I've landed in Moscow. And what happens? My luggage is gone. Anybody can find it anywhere. And when guides met me at the airport, they're like, this is our weather when we need to go. We're not waiting for your luggage. Rent some gear and make the best of it. And That's the thing. You're always making you can plan a pretty picnic. The pretty picnic's never gonna happen. But you start with the idea in your head, and you're always adjusting and just dealing with okay, here's where we're at. Can I do next? Here's where I'm at. What can I do next?
And that wasn't the only mountain you had challenge. You had challenges on K2 as
Yes.
well.
Yeah.
I think there was a part you said with the plane. You don't want to ever relive that again. Why was that? Tell us a little about that experience. There was a lot of challenges. It was a very short flight, but there was a lot of challenges on the K2.
Oh, yeah. So on K2, there's this town that you can fly into that saves you 30 some hours on the road, and it's a 40-minute flight. Okay. So if you have flight, you're on the road for over 20 years. And I'm not talking like nice big old highway. We're on these winding, curvy roads that have these crazy rock fall and everything else that's going on. And so the first year when we went to K2, the weather wasn't good and the flight wasn't allowed to go. And we had to drive. And I came back to K2 a second time. That flight went. You're like, oh my gosh, the difference, how you show up and how you feel, and the energy of the pieces of be able to take a 45 versus like a 32-hour drive is night and day.
And a lot of people, when they hear the fact that we didn't, if they're reading the book and like, well, we didn't climb that mountain. And the thing is, it's not about climbing the mountain the first climb. It's climbing the mountain when you're ready to climb it. I think that was a very interesting thing I got from you, is that like, well, why didn't they climb the mountain? Well, because the conditions weren't good. It wasn't safe. The people, there were a lot of reasons. And so you have to really be, I'd say, dialed in or listening to the pulse of what's going on, because you got your life and you've got a whole team of people's lives and their families on the line there.
Yeah, it's all. And here's the thing, like getting to the mountain top is only halfway. You need to make it all the way back home safe for you to be actually able to celebrate this. So you're always paying attention to, okay, wherever I'm at, can I make it back? If I think about it from a business principle, like if you're taking on a product or you're going to launch something new or do whatever, are you making sure you have enough runway that if you don't make it to the top, you can get back into the business? And so for us, when Mountain, you have to make it to the top and make it back. The weather's not participating. If somebody on your team doesn't feel like the right fit, like it's on the line, and that's a big decision to make.
So making the right choices, choosing the right mentor, going at the right time, even though the time that you may want to go might not be the right time. You have to listen to the guides. Now, you also mentioned something about your mountain. What are the keys to committing to our own mountain in life?
Yeah. Here's the thing. I think that once you commit to something, then you shoot for it until enough to tell you it's no longer my pursuit. So we all mountains that we start, and then we decide that really isn't what I thought it was going to be. I don't want to keep climb it, but now I know a shadow of a doubt, or now I understand something I didn't understand before, and it's okay for me to turn around. I get my pilot's license once because I thought it was going to be this romantic, sexy thing that would allow me to fly all over my life easy. Once I started taking the testing and the licensing, I realized this isn't really going to fit into my life. I'm not going to fly enough to be safe enough to put myself at risk and everybody else that's on the plane with me. So I understood that once I got into it, allowed myself to pivot and use that energy to get in else. And so when you're climbing a mountain, you might learn like, oh, guess what? This isn't, but now I know, and now I can do something else with my time that fits me more, and that's okay.
And I think that gets into the next point that I glee right into, which is, how do we know when it's not our mountain? You're kind of hit that a little bit, but how do we really know? One thing you mentioned, people can tell you, but how do we know that this isn't our mountain, that we shouldn't be pursuing this?
Yeah, I think when you stop growing or when the negatives start outweighing the positive, I'm like a big non-commitment and giving stuff a time frame so that you're not making emotional decisions. When I first got out of college, I took a job in financial services, aka cold calling. I didn't know at the time, and my parents made me commit to doing that for a year, no matter what. If I And so like my first few weeks of the job were terrible. I cried. I hated it. I'd never heard the words like, who even does this thing? Is this thing? It's the deal. I committed to it. So so I could either make it miss the next year of my life, or I could use my energy and how am I going to succeed at this thing? Because I have a year to do it. So I got to figure out how to make it fun and how to work for me. And because I had that commitment year, like cold call when you do it enough, and it gives you results that you wouldn't get another. And so I'm so grateful I took my emotions out of the picture, learn as much as I could, and have that foundation to build from on anything else that I do in my life.
So we have to really obviously take stock of where we are right now and do the best we can. But what I'm hearing you say is if we go down all the paths we possibly can pursue and we know it's not feasible, then it's not our mountain. But we can't just say it's not our mountain because it's too hard. We have to really listen. And you mentioned something that was very interesting in the beginning of our show. You said that the universe gives us clues or talks to us. So tell us a little about how the universe talks to us.
Yeah, I think it's different each person. I know for me, when I'm still and calm, messages normally come from other people. Typically my, they'll challenge me or they'll cause stop and question something. And that allows me to pursue that because something inside I'm interested or triggered or awareness was a win. And so for me, that's when I'm always looking for little cues from people or things line up. Other people have different ways to connect, but I think it's very important to follow our intuition and our inner guidance because only ourselves have these experiences to act on or not.
And I think a lot of people, they're looking for that magic bullet. They're looking for the miracle gel, which doesn't exist. I mean, we have to put a little bit of sweat into it. We've got to put a little time into it. And we have to realize that it might not happen on our timeline. Just like you said, you couldn't climb the mountain when you wanted to. You have to climb it when it was the right time to climb the mountain. You also mentioned the thing about, we talk about goals. I call goals promises because I always said to myself that when I set a goal, I would never achieve my goals. So I said, I'm going to stop setting goals in life and I make promises because if I break a promise to myself, see, that's more serious to me. I'll miss goals, whether it's a soccer goal or we'll just set another goal. We'll just do another one. Yeah, but why? Well, just set another goal. It's no big deal. But a promise, I broke a promise. Ooh, that's a problem. So let's talk a little about why is the goal or promise not the goal or promise?
Yeah, I think the goal that we set puts on a path and gives us direction. It allows us to say yes or no to things because it will bring closer to that goal or promise, or it brings us from that. But truly what happens is like I set this world record and the beginning, I'm going to set this world record and it's amazing. However, like as the journey started to unfold, I realized this is what I needed to keep me motivated to have me travel to different parts of the world and meet different people and learn different ways to do things and find different ways to make impact. I went to Mount Kenya to climb Mount Kenya. That was an amazing experience, but part about that climb was about pure poverty and being able to bring over products to keep 400 women in school for 4 years. Something that I would have never been aware that was an issue that was going on. And because I was there to climb and was introduced to this charity, I was able to help. It made the journey so much more magical. So for us sitting here that are setting goals or making promises ourselves, that gives us the direction. And now it's our job to how do we make this vision wider or deeper or impactful for others.
I love the way that, you made the journey more than about you. I always say I'm not important. Everyone else is. I'm just here to watch. And I love the way, you basically unselfishly decided to take that challenge on to help that charity. And because a lot of people say, well, gee, what's in it for me? Everyone says, what's in it for me, right? I always tell people there's 2 radio stations you can listen to. WIIFM, what's in it for me, which I don't like to listen to, or WIIFY, which what's in it for you. But nobody likes to listen to that station because they're selfish, right?
Yeah, right. I mean, I think we're all here to connect with one another, inspire one another, and another. So the more that you tap to, here's something that I want to do, you're gonna find other people do that too, and you guys can do it together, and you can make it so much bigger than just you. I've always believed that big mountains take big teams. So the bigger the mountain, it all together. And so if you have a big goal, it's gonna take a lot of people to make it happen. So get them excited, empower them, and let their journey be a part of your journey, and your journey a part of theirs.
And it's not just about a mountain here, guys. We're talking about your proverbial mountain. That could be your business, that could be a relationship, that could be a site you're working on, that could be some plan. Big ideas take big, lofty, motivated teams. And so that's very important. Now, you also talk about something that's very interesting in the book, which is the fact that, whether you're head of a company or maybe it's a relationship, sometimes, or you're writing a paper and you get writer's block. Sometimes you just have to pause and go away for a while and then come back and regroup. Talk a little about that.
Yeah. I think we can get so lost in the granular details that we get it down a rabbit hole, back out. And so for me, I realize whenever I walk away from something and just give it a little bit more space in my mind, or I'll look at something different, I get inspired again. Then I can come to the project and be like, oh, I saw this, and now I can pick it up and go again. So it's funny when you climb a mountain. I used to think that you went from base camp and it just took that long to climb it. You have these acclimatization routines, which means you go up to a camp one or a camp two. You'll point of failure where you're not operate anymore, and you'll go back down to base camp. Over the next days at base camp, your body physiologically builds more red blood cells. So when you go to the mountain again, now you can climb higher. Red blood cells help you operate in a lower oxygenated environment. And I think that metaphor into anything that we're doing business-wise, personally, professionally, because you're going to go to a spot, you're going to hit a point of failure. That means come back to the boardroom, come back to the kitchen, come back to the base camp, and analyze the things that went on, what's working, what's not, and then continue to climb and like what you learn so that you can go higher up your mountain.
When I think of failure, because many years ago I think about failure as being the end, or I like to think failure is not failure. A very good person I followed for a long time, and he is very good at sales, Tom Hopkins. Gone to his boot camp many times, and he always said, failure is not failure, but only as a way to practice my technique and perfect my performance. I only see failure as a way to laugh. I never see failure as failure, but as a game I must play to win. And so I like to say that, people get stopped by failure, but like you said, failure is just a place to get some feedback, regroup, go back up your mountain or go to your task or whatever you're doing, and move on from there. But I think a lot of people get stuck. Did you find anybody on your journey with you that you really had to motivate, that was like stuck, that was maybe holding you and the team back? Was there any situations like that where you really be like, okay, now I got to dig deep because I got to motivate this, or this could potentially challenge us?
I think we've all come to teams like that. And so when you're in that circumstance, you have to think, okay, what does this team need to continue up this mountain? And talking metaphorically, but being aware of how everybody's doing, and becoming what people need, and maybe what you need yourself. I remember getting ladders on Mount Everest, and I didn't think heights until I saw those ladders. I'm like, oh my goodness, like I'm crossing that. Those tied together with twine. Like, are we sure they're gonna hold? And like, what if somebody falls? And all the things that's out of you. And I realized like my teammates were cheering me on, and the only thing to take a safe step. So I had to keep repeating the mantra: safe step, safe step, safe step. I continued to make that step to cross that section of the ladder and get to the other side. Yes, we had like a little celebration when it was done, because that celebration allows you to metabolize that fear, turn it into excitement, and be able to use it So I think it's very important to be aware of where your teammates are, where you are, and do to benefit the group so they continue to move.
You also made another great point in the book about your teams. People think you have to have the largest teams. You might need a large team and you might need a small team. I think it really just depends, right, on the task you're going for, right?
Definitely. Different mountains that I climbed, we had different teams, right? So for the one in Antarctica of us, for Mount Logan, there was three of us. There was more like 14 of us. So every mountain has its number that it like is sweet spot, and you just have to honor it, hire around you or put people around you that complement what you get to the top.
And, when we think about getting to the top, I think a lot of people don't realize that, you made a very interesting statement, which was that you said in your book, you don't need a brush with death to become breakproof. And so people have this opportunity every day to wake up, don't they? But they just don't.
Yeah. For me, I think it's going down the wrong path and I wasn't listening to the signs. And so the universe gave me a car accident to say like, this is your one shot life. Like, do you really want to wait until you're in college to start living it? Like there's a way, and you can be a good mom and do things that get you excited. And so for me, when people read the book, I want them to say like, okay, I'm putting a line in the sand today, right? Like this is my change and this is what's going to happen. Here's what I'm going to do. It doesn't have to be the significant external event. It can be a declaration for yourself, by yourself, to make a change.
That resonates a lot with me because probably over 6 or 7 years ago, I was an intermediate skier for a very long time. And it was probably about 8 years roughly. And I always went skiing on my own, but I had gone skiing and went to a mountain that was close to New Jersey. I went to Hunter Mountain, which isn't too far for us. And so the grandfather had decided to bequeath the business over to his grandkids. Now, they didn't know anything about the resort. They knew nothing about snow. They knew nothing about business, nothing about making money, nothing about safety, nothing about marketing. And this went from a 5-star resort to a negative 5-star resort. Well, I went up there and I went on the green because the weather wasn't great and it was a little icy. So I said, let me go to the higher mountain because I think it'd be better because it'll be higher up. Well, I went on the higher mountain. I got a little ways down, left, right. And all of a sudden, as I was going right, I couldn't pivot to go left anymore. I broke my tib and fib off my left. I basically took that moment and my body zoned out and it blocked the pain. And then I recovered without surgery when everybody said to me I was going to need surgery. So I think, but what the point here that I'm making is that when that happened to me, if that wouldn't have happened to me, I would be in the same spot I was 7 or 8 years ago. I wouldn't have grown. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't have moved. I wouldn't have changed. I wouldn't have believed in myself to do things and start other businesses to grow. I would have believed that I just was stuck. And when I said to myself, and I could do this when I got a broken leg, I said, this is nothing. This is nothing. Opening a business, this is nothing. The leg is a problem. Yeah. And that got me motivated to that. And it got me to motivate from losing 250 to 165 pounds. Because I believed that the broken leg was the hard part. Everything else in life is cake. Yeah. Why am I making everything like a brick? It's not hard. So I think we've all got to look at those moments and really try to look at the fact that we need to grow, because if we don't grow, the universe is going to give us that card. So we could just say, hey, universe, I'm open to changing. Just show me in a way that I'll cooperate. Don't make it hard. I'm willing to cooperate. Just give me some signs. And you won't wind up with an emergency. You won't be in the hospital. Because I think, like you said, some of these things happen because some people need more intense signs. They need more like wow factor. Yeah. As you said in your book, you don't need a wow factor to change. You just need the desire.
Definitely. And we all have the ability to change and shift at any point that we declare it, set and act upon that intention.
Well, I got to tell you, Jenn, this has been an amazing interview. I don't know if you've enjoyed as much as I have, but just talking the first time and having the privilege to read your book and go through it and talk with you and just connect with things like, the failure and how you connect the mountain to things in life. I think that was just a really good idea. I mean, I had heard of the concept, but you actually took it and made it a reality. It wasn't just like, hey, this is my mountain. We've said that before, but we never really put all the staples. We never really put all the supplies into it or all the wiring into it that would give us the feeling, right? Because it's the feeling that makes us do something. I definitely want to thank you for taking time to be with us here on Inspirations for Your Life. I know it's been a while since we first met, but thank you very much for your book and for allowing me to share this with my wonderful audience and to let me have the privilege to learn from you and to learn about the challenges you went through and how they can inspire us to be better. Before we do say goodbye, I just want to ask you, is there anything you want to share with my audience if they want to reach out to you or to get in touch with you for any reason?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. So if anybody's interested in learning more or following along on my journeys, me at jenndrummond.com. All my social media handles there. Reach out on any platform of choice. And if you're inspired to see an amazing video, keep on my phone to keep me grounded. If you text the word Everest to the number 37777, I'll send you a video of the Milky Way galaxy Everest Base Camp. And anytime I feel like life's too hard or just need to check out that 20-second clip and recenter, I'm sharing it with you.
What a remarkable story, Jenn. This has been really amazing. And I hope you guys will take some of this advice because this was absolutely amazing. Thank you very, very much, Jenn, for being on the show today.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, Jenn Drummond, a very remarkable lady that had some challenges, and she took that lemon and made it lemonade. And that's something that you can do, but you got to do one thing. You know what that is? You got to believe in yourself, all right? So definitely check out all of Jenn Drummond's amazing things. If you haven't got the chance, go get this book. It's a great book. You don't need to read it in one night. You can literally do like I did. I went and read a couple of times. There's basically 7 sections, and each one has about 3 chapters in them. And it's about 180, 185 pages. And there's also some great thought sections where she'll actually ask you to reflect on the reading, which a lot of authors don't do. So I think it was great. And I love her commitment to being unselfish, to wanting to help others. I have a philanthropic bone myself, so I think that is great. Ladies and gentlemen, you've been watching Inspirations for Your Life, where we create content to help you guys become better versions of yourself. Of course, I can lead you to the water, but you know what I can't do? I can't make you drink it, and I don't want to. So check out Jenn's book, and remember, when things get hard, remember, it's not as hard as some people have it. It might just seem hard to you because you haven't done what you need to do, which is commit and build resilience. Thanks so much, Jenn.